South. So I grew up in an environment where everybody was different. I never saw my first white Anglo-Saxon Protestant until I left the South Bronx section of New York and the South. We were all different. And so diversity was kind of bred into me. Tolerance for others. We used to kid each other. In those days, you could say things that you can't say now. But we always did it in the spirit of fun and comradeship. And my whole education in a public school system in New York was like that. Everybody was different. Therefore, we were all the same. And then a funny thing happened when I graduated from college and went into the Army. It was 1958, and the last Army unit had been desegregated just 4 years earlier. And it was only a few years after President Truman integrated the armed forces of the United States. He did it in 48, but it took another 6 years for everybody to get the word. And when I came in 1958, it was truly the beginning of an integrated military force, an integrated Army. And so when I went to my first posting in the Army, the sergeants made it clear to me, he was a young lieutenant, and my officer superiors made it clear to me that as a young lieutenant, we don't do diversity here. They're all the same. Don't give us any hard luck stories about being a black kid from the South Bronx section of New York. We don't care. Don't tell us any hard luck stories about being an immigrant kid. We don't care. Don't care if you're black or white or blue. We are all now green. And we're all one team, one fight, we're all green. And if you do your very, very best, you'll get ahead. If you don't do your very, very best, you won't get ahead. And no diversity aspect of your life or background is going to help you. You got that? Yes, sir. That's all I asked for. That's all I ever wanted. Give me my opportunity to turn the loose. People have said over the years, but haven't you gotten some benefits from, your sort of poor start in life or your color? Or, well, maybe I did, maybe I don't know. Maybe I did get some affirmative action breaks along the way. And there have been times in my career where people have said to me, well, you know why you're getting that job, don't you? It's because you're black and they want a black in there. And you know why you didn't come out #1 in that course at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. They couldn't let you be the #1 in that course at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. So they made you #2 in that course at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. My reaction to these kinds of comments was, well, this ain't my problem. It's their problem. And never let the problem of my color, skin, background, and immigrant beginning be my problem. It was always somebody else's problem. Don't let racism be your problem. Let it be the racist's problem. They're the ones who are suffering. I even would say to people who would sometimes raise issues like this with me, okay, I don't care if I got it because of my performance, which is what I think, or somebody played a little affirmative action. All I know is I got it. And the real test is, what do I do with it, not how I got it. And if I do my very, very best, and if I'm graded high, then anybody who thought I got it for affirmative action or some other reason will have to go off in a corner and think about it some more. Because I got where I am and I'm moving up because of my performance, which is all I've ever asked for. And as I go around and talk to youngsters in schools or audiences such as this, I make the point to the kids, your past is not your future. Your present is not your future. Don't let anybody put a burden on you because of who you are, your background. The country has changed so much in the last 50 years that you can get ahead and get to the top and be measured just by your performance, but you gotta perform. You gotta be there. That's why it's so important we have programs like the Young Scholars Program that we're celebrating here today. Where are all the young scholars, by the way? Hey, kids. This program, as you know, is a way to make sure that these youngsters coming up are ready for the challenges of college. And what we have to do throughout our society, and I do it a lot in New York, I have a center named after me at my alma mater, the City College of New York, and we have similar programs to make sure that our wonderful Technicolor society is prepared for the future. And diversity is not just a buzzword that we have to do to make sure everybody likes the way we look in our corporate settings and whatnot. It's the future of the country. And what I tell all of my colleagues in political life and military life around the world, don't you understand that America is becoming a minority-majority country? In one generation, the minorities of America will have become a majority. So what do we call them then? Do we call them the minority, majority, or the majority? It's very confusing. And it's going to be very hurtful for the white folks. So we're going to have to take care of them as we go through this. We're the only nation on the face of the earth who could take that kind of demographic change in our society and pull it off. They can't do it in Europe. They don't know how to deal with the floods of non-Europeans who are coming from Africa, the northern part of Africa, the Sahel. They can't do it anywhere else. Japan wouldn't know how to do anything like this. Almost no country in the world has, one, a constitution and an economy and a society that will allow us to face that kind of demographic issue and deal with it. And part of dealing with it is to make sure that we have meetings such as this where the community comes together and thinks it through and thinks through what issues we have to deal with. How do we make it happen? How do we do it well? And so I congratulate the sponsors, I congratulate the university, and I especially congratulate Mr. Kennedy for what he's doing in bringing these councils together around the country. For all those reasons, it's a great pleasure for me to be with you today and to share some thoughts with you. But I have to be, kind of honest, and I've got to be candid with you. At this stage of my life, this stage of my career, I'm glad to be anywhere. I've been out of government for a few years now, but late at night I still think about it. I still think about that one day. I was sitting there, and every king, every president, every prime minister in the world was calling me. Wanting to come see me, or won't you come see me? One day, I'm sitting there, and every reporter, every commentator wants to interview me, come on my show. Just imagine, one day you're sitting there, and you're the #1 diplomat of the whole free world. One day you're sitting there, you're the Secretary of State of the United States of America. Next day you ain't. The afternoon, Condi Rice was sworn in. 5 minutes later, they came and pulled my phone out. I looked around. Where'd all the bodyguards go? What happened? Down here, all by here. And you go through a transition in life, a transformation in your life, and it can be very disorienting and disconcerting when you're suddenly just another person, really God. But the same thing happened to me when I stepped down from being the #1 military person in the Armed Forces of the United States, the chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff of the United States of America. And all of that was under my supervision. 2 million soldiers, 2 million civilians around the world all the time. And when I stepped down from that, I was just another retired GI. So I knew that this time I was going to go through the same sort of traumatic change that I went through when I was chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, so I was ready for it. And I knew that the change begins at home. So my first morning after leaving the Department of State, I was sitting at the kitchen table with my beloved wife, Alma, who has spoken here at Ohio State, and looking lovingly at her across the table. We've been married 50 years. So the first morning, we're sipping our coffee leisurely, got nowhere to go. I said, darling, this is the first day of the rest of our lives. I won't be getting up at 5:30 in the morning anymore. I won't be getting up at 6:30 in the morning anymore. She froze. I heard her mutter under her breath, oh my God. This fool isn't leaving in the morning. Doesn't he have a clue as to how we stayed married for 50 years? So I realized that was not going to be sustainable, and I had to get out of the house and find things to do. But the real challenge is after all that activity and excitement in your life, suddenly it's gone and it's emptiness comes upon you. This intellectual and emotional gap opens up inside of you. You've got to do something to fill it. If you don't do that, it can be very, very depressing. And so I gave it a lot of thought, what will I do? How will I fill this emptiness that I feel inside of me? And after a while, I got it. I bought me a Corvette.
Yay!
So the only problem with the Corvette is that I've got 5 police jurisdictions around my home and they all know me. And so when they see me doing the slightest thing wrong, they start talking, okay, whose turn is it? Whose turn is it? Go get him. And they pull me over all the time. But the problem is they're all like Shiites. And they'll get out of the cruiser, they'll come up to me and they come to attention and they salute. And then they write me a ticket. I trained them too well. They're too good. They're too good. Okay, like Powell, people will say to me, why, what's this all about? We know you're having jokes with all this, but are you really working hard? Are you doing anything when you just retired? And the answer is I'm probably working as hard now as I've ever worked before in my life, just a different kind of way. I keep my fingers in on politics and what's going on in the world and the military issues, of course. I have to do that. But that's not what really takes most of my time. A large part of my time is spent on the speaking circuit, going around the country, and I love it. The reason I love it is because it gets me out of Washington, gets me out of the house, but it exposes me to so many things that are going on around our country. Whether it's a group of financial advisors or retail operation, or whatever it happens to be, it's a different audience every single time. And I learn so much from the audiences that I speak to when I'm studying what to talk to them about. And what I see as I go around the country are people who are nervous. They're nervous about the election coming up. They're nervous about the economy. They're concerned about our entanglements overseas. And that anxiety is throughout the country. You all know it. You see it here in Ohio. But the other thing I see is that the audiences I talk to, the people I have the privilege of addressing, still have a sense of confidence and optimism about this country. You still believe things can get better. I mean, just coming in from the airport, driving through downtown part of your city, hotels are going up, buildings are going up, things are happening here. And so I see that everywhere. No matter what the troubles we have, we're Americans, we'll get on top of them, we'll keep going, we'll surprise everybody, as we always do. We'll keep going. When I go home, as I will this afternoon, and reflect on what I saw here and what I saw downtown, I only wish I could gather up that confidence and optimism and belief, bottle, take it back to Washington, D.C., and pour it over the heads of our politicians in Congress and tell them, you better get going. People really get mad. I touched on this issue yesterday when I was doing the Charlie Rose interview. And the point I didn't get a chance to expand upon is that this country has to get back to learning how to compromise. Our legislators need to get back to understanding what compromise is all about. Our founding fathers assembled in the summer of 1787 in the hot room in Philadelphia, and they faced some of the most difficult issues imaginable. They're trying to create a constitution for the country. A country born in freedom. A country with a dream. And they had strong feelings in the North and the South, from the agricultural section and the industrial section. And they argued with each other, and they presented their strong feelings. But they also knew they had to compromise. They had to compromise on what the House of Representatives looks like, what the Senate looks like, the powers of the president, the powers of the court. Look at all the things they had to compromise on. And they had to compromise on one of the worst things facing the new nation at that time, slavery. And they compromised on all these things, difficult as it was, including slavery. It was an awful compromise that they made. That a person who was indentured was only worth 3/5 of another person for representational purposes. It was awful. They knew it was awful, but they had to compromise. They had to create a constitution, and they were there not to solve the terrible problem of slavery, which would take another 200 years to solve. They were there to create a country and create a constitution, and they did. And when you think of what they had to do to achieve the mission that they had, and what we look at in Washington today, where you can't even get an appropriations bill out of a Congress of 535 smart people, it's a disgrace, and we got to stop standing up. Big up. That light has to go off. I'm sorry. When you think about it, and you decided who you're going to vote for on the 6th of November, don't just think that you're going to vote for some Superman on either side who's going to come in and solve all the problems. We are the super people, and we got to start electing super representatives, and not just the folks who have been laying around all this time not getting anything done. You know, they said, are you for that Simpson-Bowles compromise or the super committee compromise? I said, why do I need those guys? The Congress is supposed to be doing this stuff, not committees that are created. And so it's going to be a really interesting time after the election to see how the Congress acts to get us out of the fiscal problem that we have. And they better act or we're going to be right back in a recession, and that's not where we want to be. And so it's a fascinating time for me to see this unfold as I travel around, to see the optimism and to see the problems we still have. And that's why this is a major part of my life. I'm also a venture capitalist. Yes, ma'am? I'm a partner at a company called Kleiner Perkins in Silicon Valley. They brought you Amazon and Google. They did all that cool stuff. And I love being with my partners. I love seeing what the information revolution has done to the world. The Arab Spring, all of the boundaries that used to keep people apart, all of the different cultures that used to be so separate. Now, everybody can talk to everybody else. Everybody can communicate with everybody else. Billions of smartphones all over the world. Transparency that breaks down barriers. And I was born analog. So yes, I ain't got much time left. I've got to catch up with this digital stuff. And so I love being out with my partners. But the real reason I want to learn more about the digital world is to keep up with my grandchildren. These kids are making me crazy. I have 4 of them. The 2 youngest, 5 and 7 years old, were going somewhere with their aunt the other day, Aunt Linda. So Linda strapped him in the back of the car and started to drive off. They started screaming, Aunt Linda, Uncle, stop, Auntie Linda. And so she panicked. She doesn't know what's wrong. She pulls over. Auntie Linda, stop. And she said, well, what's wrong? Auntie Linda, you didn't turn on the GPS. We won't know where we're going. Neighbor bought a big flat screen 50-inch television set, mounted on the wall. Her 5-year-old kid started screaming and crying like bloody murder. Mommy, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Mother runs into the living room to see what's wrong. And the 5-year-old's going like this, thinking it's a big iPad. That's where we're going. We're all going to be living in iPads, you know? And if you can't touch it and make something happen, I ain't interested in it. The remotes are going to go all the way of 8-track tapes, for those of you who still remember 8-track tapes. So, the really bad one in my family is the 18-year-old boy who's a genius in this stuff. He's now studying at the University of Texas in Austin. A great. Woo! I knew that would happen. And so, he's a smart one. So I say to him one day, hey Brian, honey, you don't answer my telephone calls anymore. You don't answer my emails anymore. Are you mad about something, son? Oh, Poppy, dear Poppy. You don't seem to understand. We don't do emails anymore. And we don't do phone calls anymore. What do we do, Brian? Poppy, we text. And we tweet. Brian, what's a tweet? It comes from Twitter. Oh. Why don't they call it a twit? I don't know that. I just can't follow. Don't worry, Poppy, we're gonna get you a Twitter account. I don't know. If you want to watch your grandchildren grow, you better get a Twitter account. And you need a Facebook page. Oh no. I'm much too old to need a social network site. Where was it when I was 20 and I could have really hung out? 3 days later, he says, guess what, Poppy? I already have a Facebook page. Somebody pretended they were you and put one up. What? Yeah, you got a Facebook page. And it's cool. Pictures there, a lot of stuff. I said, you can't, we got to draw the line. They can't do that. You can't steal my privacy that way. So get the lawyers. We're going to sue this kid Zuckerberg. He's still got a lot of money left. IPO didn't do that good, but he's still got a lot of money left. And so Brian said, but Poppy, you already have 30,000 friends. Oh, okay, let it go. Well, I'm desperate. I got a beautiful Facebook page now. In fact, when Alma and I hit our 50th anniversary in August, she, unbeknownst to me, went and put a little picture in the Washington Post of our cutting the cake 50 years ago. It was very sweet. She paid $200 for it. She didn't tell me about it. I'd have killed it. She was going to put it in the New York Times, but that was $2,000. It would have killed her. But anyway, it's printed in the Washington Post. A couple hundred people see it. But my assistant takes the picture and puts it on her Facebook page. In 7 days, we had 8,000 comments, 80,000 likes, and 2.1 million people had viewed it. So, I'm not a fool. So we had our 50th anniversary party. And one of our friends made a cake that was just like the cake for the first day. And so we took a picture of that, and we put it up on my Facebook page next to the other picture. We got another 1.2 million views. This is cool. I'm trying to sell a book, you know? But it just shows you how the world is changing, and also kind of reflects the diversity of the world. Because my Facebook page appears all over the world. It is available to people who are of high means and low means, people in my community in McLean, Virginia, all over the world. And so it is not only racial and gender and other kinds of diversity that's important, it's the diversity of information and the diversity of thought that is going all over the world and fundamentally changing the world. And any political party that does not understand this and put it into their strategy won't be successful in the long term. And so I have a lot of fun with this kind of stuff. I also have at my college at CCNY, my young friends, something called the Colin Powell Center for Leadership and Service. It's in Harlem. 80% of my students are minority, and 50% were born in another country. Born in another country, half the school population. And I love working with my center. And what I love about it most is when I left there 54 years ago, I graduated from CCNY 54 years ago. When I left there, it was absolutely clear they weren't going to name nothing after me ever. I've been there 4.5 years, barely got in the first place. It was going on 5 years, and they would get tired of me because I got an occasional difficulty and I kept changing my major. And so they said, well, let's look at this whole record. And they looked at my ROTC grade, and I'm straight A. And they said, let's take his ROTC grades and put it into his overall GPA, see what it looks like. So they did. Brought me up to 2.0. No. And they went, good enough for government work, give him to the Army. And now I'm considered one of the greatest sons the city college of New York has ever had. And the reason I love to tell this story, especially to young people like this, is it isn't where you start in life. It's where you end up. For you young people especially, and all of the people here today, hard work should never end in your life. I often talk to students who say, do you have to still do homework? every day. Never goes away here. Do you ever fail at anything? Yes, every day. Failure and disappointment are part of life. The question is not did you fail or were you disappointed?
Did you get back?
The question for you is what do you do about it? Do you go in the corner, suck your thumb, and weep about it? Or do you find out what did you do wrong? What caused the failure? What caused the disappointment? Fix yourself. Don't point fingers at anyone else. Just fix yourself. And once you know what you did wrong, what you missed, you fix it. Improve yourself. Get better. And you roll that failure up into a little ball. You throw it over your shoulder and never look at it again. I've got a lot of failures behind me. But I've always got to look forward, never backwards. And that's the lesson you young people need to learn right away. Always be moving forward. And so I'm having a pretty good time at this phase in my life. People can still say to me, General, it can't be the same as being Secretary of State. Don't you miss that? No, I don't miss anything. Always going forward. I want to look to the front windshield of life, not the rearview mirror. Well, that's a positive attitude, General Powell, but there must be something you missed by no longer being Secretary of State. Yeah, there is one thing I miss, and I miss it very, very badly. I miss my airplane. I had my own 757. All mine. When you visit a foreign country, the plane would be waiting out at the VIP terminal. When it was time to leave, I would go out to the terminal and drink tea with my host and wait while they rolled a long red carpet out to my plane. When it was time to go, I would say goodbye. I would start down the red carpet. A band would be playing. An honor guard would present arms. And I walked down the carpet waving to the adoring crowds that were there. I get to the steps of my plane. Left foot hit the bottom step. The right engine would start to turn over. I get to the top step. Just as I'm going through the door, the left engine would start working. With my private cabin, sit down, put on my seatbelt, and wait until the steward would come in with a Diet Coke. Diet Coke on a silver tray. Take the Coke off the tray and we'd pop it on the table in front of me. And as soon as the pilots got word that the Coke hit the table, the plane would immediately stop. So cool. They gave my plane to Condi. Hillary's got it now, and I never see that. But I gotta get back to being normal. So now when I have to travel, unlike today when I was very kindly flown down here, but usually what I have to do, go down to Reagan National Airport, usually have a little baseball hat on, some sunglasses, a little jacket, and I get on the TSA line. People say, oh, come on. You know, they spot you and take you around to the crew line, don't they? Au contraire. When they spot me, I can see them whispering. I know what they're saying. Oh, General Powell's here again. Now remember, everybody's watching. It could all go on YouTube. Be careful. You got to make sure that everybody here knows that there are no exceptions to our rules. So they run me through everything. And after they've had their way with me, they bring out a guy who's the honor graduate of TSA Wondering School.